Hey guys, it's Clay from Clear Critique. Even though Halloween season is over, I still have a hunger for horror, or at the very least, suspense. Which brings me to Hitchcock, the master of suspense with a massive filmography. But which movies are his best? Today, I'm not going to be regurgitating noise like the poor contract writers from other companies I could mention. I actually watched every Hitchcock film, only leaving out the silent ones that should really have their own list, so you know this video is coming from a place of actual research. So here we go. The top 10 films directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Also, a shout out to my mom, a brilliant woman who loves Hitchcock films. You guys should totally wish her a happy belated birthday in the comments. Let's do it! Number 10 was very nearly Dial M for Murder, which has an outstanding 25-minute sequence in the first act. The dialogue is sharp and interesting, and the shot composition complements the conversation. When the character asks about the actual steps of a proposed murder, and for the first time the camera switches to a bird's eye view as if capturing a crime scene, you know you're watching something good. An unfortunate trope in modern thrillers is to have things happen because characters are dumb as bricks, and it's refreshing to watch someone this surgical. Sadly, the third act is protracted, meaning stretched harder than Breaking Dawn's runtime, so it falls just short of number 10. Instead, it's going to Rebecca. For starters, the film is gorgeous, and like a good black and white film, it constantly plays with angles, contrast, and movement that keep it from looking stale. It feels genuinely gothic, the setting heavy and haunted with whispers of the past. The plot is suitably melancholy and even a bit disturbing. All the performances are solid, especially from the housekeeper who has a real "you didn't floss, did you?" vibe to her. Melodramatic at times, but for atmosphere alone, this one earns a spot in the top 10. Next is the 1956 version of The Man Who Knew Too Much. A couple negatives first. The kid is auditory sandpaper, and the opening sequence is stilted and dull. In fact, the first 15 minutes or so aren't that good in general. But this leads to the film's biggest strength. It gets better as it goes along. Scene by scene, minute by minute, the tension rises, the protagonists slip deeper into mistrust and danger, and then we get to a fantastic climax. The fact a violent act is tied to a certain musical note means that the scene rhythmically and powerfully builds to a moment we already know is coming, yet we sweat while watching. And that's just the climax of plot A. We get another musical, nerve-wracking sequence soon after. 2 for the price of 1. It's kinda dope. Next up is To Catch a Thief. Watching this filled me with mixed emotions. I was joyous, but also sad, seeing how strong dialogue like this was expected, not earth-shattering, while much of mainstream scripts feel like first drafts created by algorithms, idiots, and more quacks in a pond full of fucking bread. This and the first act of The Lady Vanishes, which would have made the list if it leaned more into its superior comedy, is probably the hardest I've laughed at a Hitchcock film. The snappy one-liners are ceaseless. Cary Grant performs with an effortless slickness, and the fact he's playing a burglar gives his character an edge that the actor seems to relish. Equal parts comedy, thriller, and romance, To Catch a Thief blends them all without creating that lurching, "oh, here we go, new genre." It's smooth. I discussed Cary Grant and Grace Kelly in one of my top 5 movie couples videos, so I'll just say that they have lovely chemistry, and her character performs the best future wife move I've ever seen on film. The biggest laugh for me is when our protagonist is literally treading water between 2 women with their talons out. It's just hilarious. Clever, classy, Cary and Kelly, can't go wrong.
From where I sat, it looked as though you were conjugating some irregular verbs.
Say something nice to her, Danielle.
She looks a lot older up close.
At number 7 is North by Northwest. It's really got it all. An everyman, mistaken identity, spies and conspiracy, a calculating villain, a creepy henchman, a femme fatale, globetrotting, and big set pieces. It's practically a James Bond film. In fact, From Russia with Love transparently copied the iconic airplane attack, and it's fair to assume the film's success prompted Bond films to model themselves after it to a certain extent. And the movie doesn't just contain these elements, but nails them, from performances to editing to some truly wonderful music. North by Northwest is easily the sexiest film by Hitchcock. The dialogue smolders. The mysterious woman on the train is way more forward in her advances than I expected. And the train sequence as a whole is bathed in eroticism. The director couldn't show sex, obviously, but maybe he could imply it with some really subtle metaphor. You cheeky dog. At number 6 is The Birds. Yes, this is only a few steps from a straight-up creature feature. Yes, the setup could have been trimmed down. Yes, the special effects look only slightly better than something Nostalgia Critic would make. So why is it here? Well, because of everything else. The birds in question, when they're actually real birds sitting still in massive numbers, are scary. It's ominous how calm they are in these moments. The movie is surprisingly bloody. The camera angles are some of the most inspired Hitchcock has executed. The ending is exquisite. I love that we never know why the birds attack, but we are shown a correlation. One that any sane person would see as simple coincidence, but it's the only thread the film gives us to pull. So we pull on it. For a thriller, I think that's genius. Also, the opening credits are kind of amazing. Number 5 is Strangers on a Train. Have you ever encountered someone who's a bit weird and seems too eager to be your best friend? The main fear being stoked here is, what if that new person who thinks they're your best pal ends up becoming your enemy? Kinda like The Cable Guy, but way better. This is such a good movie. The frank discussions of death, the heightening of intensity, the slow procedural murder setups bring an almost film noir vibe and reminded me a bit of Double Indemnity. The two leads are engaging, and unlike my number 9 pick, this is a film that gets its main murderous plot going pretty quickly. The cinematography is great, and there's a shot here featuring a murder reflected in a pair of glasses that is downright mind-blowing. Before you tweet about another visionary with a $200 million budget and a legion of underpaid animators, at least check out this shot. Strangers on a Train does suffer from a sped-up finale that hasn't aged well, but I don't have any other major complaints. The concept is thrilling, the dialogue excels at fleshing out these characters, and the pacing is spot on. It made me nervous as hell. Mission accomplished. Number 4 is a movie most of you may not have even heard of, and that's 1972's Frenzy. Holy crap, this movie. This is one of the most realistic and upsetting portrayals of a serial killer I've ever seen. The plot is a bit of a trickster at first, introducing both a murder plot and a hot-tempered protagonist at the same time. So we assume, okay, that's the guy. We meet his chummy friend, his boss, his love interest, and we settle in. We get this innocuous scene, a nothing scene really, of the friend talking to a professional matchmaker. Then she starts implying odd behavior on his part. Then she gets anxious. Then his friendliness starts to fade and something off-putting emerges. And we realize, oh god, it's him!
Somehow I don't think our clients would appreciate your conception of a loving relationship.
I get on with all sorts of people.
Very gradually, the dialogue ushers forth this reveal, and then escalates into violence that isn't as gratuitous as other films, but the progression feels so natural that the effect is both terrifying and almost nauseating. Snuff film territory. This sequence has been branded on my brain since I've seen it, and that's just one of many fantastic sections in this movie. There's an elongated sequence where the villain has to retrieve evidence from a victim, a slow camera pull from a stairwell as noise from the street fills the air, forcing us to visualize a violent act. This is horror with skill, with finesse, and with zero mercy. At number 3 is Psycho. Whether you find the movie scary or not, you've got to admit there's some real craftsmanship at play. The list unrolls forever. The number of angles in the iconic shower scene, the way Hitchcock shoots the villain to make him look lonely, terrifying, or like the birds he admires. The soundtrack that does more with strings than most movies. I will say the ending monologue still bugs me. Unnecessary pace-killing and long-winded exposition plagued many thrillers of this era. Who knew Hitchcock was so into anime? Psycho is iconic. It's credited with popularizing, if not inventing, the slasher genre. But leave reputation and influence aside, and you're still left with a brilliantly shot, scored, paced, performed, and written horror film, sporting one of the greatest villains of all time. To echo a sentiment spoken in Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments, I still envy anybody who doesn't know what Psycho is about and goes to see it for the first time. So if you haven't, do it. Runner-up is Vertigo, the trippiest, weirdest, and most beautifully shot film by the master of suspense. Hitchcock set up certain shots in painstaking detail, and the effect is often breathtaking. Colors and spirals visualize the themes of disorientation, nostalgia, and loss of sanity. There's a dream sequence that rips into the runtime with psychedelic fury, and you feel a bit hysterical watching it. Helped by these visuals, the story unfolds like an out-of-body odyssey, a dream but a much slower one, where you buy everything that's happening as you drift from scene to scene, yet something still feels off, askew. It's a surreal experience. It's worth noting that Jimmy Stewart gives one of his oddest performances, in the best sense of the word. He's frantic, aggressive, and even a little bit creepy. There's some great dialogue, even in moments not related to the drama at hand. The music is evocative and very memorable. Vertigo serves as a sublime example of imagery and plot working in harmony. And before you ask, no, I don't recommend watching it on drugs. But I know some of you are going to do it anyway. Watching a director's filmography can expose you to new sides of their craft, can make you reconsider your favorites by them. However, it can also crystallize an opinion. So after all of this, I can confidently say that yes, Rear Window is Hitchcock's best. Where to even begin? Despite taking place mostly in one room, it's never visually dull, due to its voyeuristic nature and strong cinematography. Witty dialogue sparkles in every scene, and works wonders in setting up character dynamics. We followed not just this main story, but multiple stories in other apartments. And all of them not only have satisfying endings, but are entertaining to watch. This is one of the best romances ever put to screen, one that seamlessly merges with the murder plot. The pair have spectacular chemistry. It's so good. The opening shot of Grace Kelly is one for the ages, and famed costume designer Edith Head does some of her best work on this movie. The actual murder investigation is just as exciting, since we're always one step behind the killer and can only guess alongside the leads what each item or action seen through the window implies. The fact the murder itself is depicted as a solitary scream at night is perfect, and the villain is genuinely intimidating. I can't think of a single scene that isn't successful. It's tense, it's hilarious, and kind of beautiful. For these reasons and many others, Rear Window is a masterpiece of romance and suspense, and the finest work by Alfred Hitchcock. What are your favorite Hitchcock films? Any other top 10s you'd like to see? Comment below, I love reading suggestions. Subscribe and click the bell to support the channel, and I'll see you all next time.